About to leave, already packing. Come with me, I'm not really asking. We'll get away to a place where we don't know. About to see the world in action, what we can be. Life with no distractions, we'll get away. This is what we waited for. Take my hand, we'll make it somehow. We can't miss out. I'm done living life with the lights out. Die with my own doubts. Be free with me. Let's go, let's be free with Not looking back, eyes on the freeway, Bonnie and Clyde, a classic cliche. We're on the run, this is what we waited for. Take my hand, we'll make it somehow. We can't miss out. I'm done living life with the lights out. Die with my own doubts.
Good evening, hello there, and welcome to our latest GCSE History live stream. We're carrying on with our series of sessions on early Elizabethan England. I'm joined as ever by Rocky. Good evening, Rocky.
Evening, Duncan. You okay?
I'm very well, thank you. Enjoying your half term?
Yeah, very well. It was.
Oh,
It was
back at
nice.
school. Yeah, I was going to say back
Yeah,
at school
back at
now, aren't you?
school.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's why I
Yeah.
look so sad.
So you got a mixed bag probably. Some of you will be on holiday this week and some of you off on half term. We are moving on to the Revolt of the Northern Earls this week, which we sort of trailed a bit last week. I remember in a couple of the activities we mentioned this was coming. So shall we get cracking straight away with our first activity? I'll just mention, for those of you watching live, and it's great to see some of you there this evening with us. Very nice to see you. If you want to join in with these activities, you can do so in the live chat window. If you haven't joined us before, I'm sure some of you have, and you know that that's what you should be doing. So as the activities start, please do join in. Many more of you watch on catch up on a replay. If you're doing that, you obviously can't really join in with the live chat, but you do have the added advantage of being able to pause the video and give yourself a bit longer with a few of these activities. Okay, let's crack straight on then with Sorry, I've just been speaking for ages and no one's heard me. Apparently, I was muted. I'm very sorry about that. I don't know what happened then. How long was I not speaking for? how long?
Well, I'm
How long
relieved,
could?
Duncan, because this is the first time I can hear you as well. And I was saying I couldn't say hear anything or say anything, so that's a relief.
Oh
It
gosh,
wasn't
has
just
it?
me.
Have I been silent throughout the first activity? Did you? Could I be heard during the during the missing vowels? I was celebrating lots of people getting the right answer, like Dean and Anonymous and Gray. Oh, I do apologise if no one's heard anything for the first. Rocky is now going to take us through the categorise activity. I'm really sorry, I don't know what happened then. Could you hear us at the start when we were chatting at the beginning? That's really weird. I really don't know what happened then. Anyway, okay, Rocky.
Okay, well, no problem. Well, afternoon or evening, everyone. Hope you're well. So what we've got: Gray, Anonymous, Dean. Excellent. Yeah, great work. So this is categorized. Essentially, we're going to look at the causes of the revolt, and we want to look at political reasons versus religious reasons. So what were the religious motivations behind the revolt of the Northern Earls, and what were the political reasons? There are 8 reasons that you need to categorize into political or religious reasons, and it's not necessarily a 4-4 split. So during the time, just think about what issues political, what issues religious, and then think about why potentially those issues are political or religious. Best of luck. Hopefully we can hear some music as well.
Hopefully.
There we go. There we are. So if we have a little look, so potentially, I'll go through these, but ultimately, if you imagine you've got oh wow, hold on, I'm just quickly checking, Gray, some of your answers. Fantastic, brilliant. We'll go through these. So what we have are, as a potential 12 marker, it could be explain the causes of the Northern revolt of the Northern Earls, or it could be a potential 16 marker regarding, were political reasons the most important issue behind the revolt of the Northern Earls, or were religious reasons, as a different type of question. So if we have a quick look, and then I'll go through these. So we'll start with political reasons. Now, 8 and 1 sort of tie together. Now, the Percys and the Nevilles, they're well-established families. So obviously, Percy is Northumberland and Neville is Westmoreland. Well-established families in the north, prestigious families that have had a base in that region for, decades, centuries even. And so they're very angry at particular favourites within Elizabeth's court, like Sir William Cecil, who's the Secretary of State, or people like Sir John Forster being appointed to look after the Scottish borders. So they resent this lack of influence that they have over Elizabeth. Now, this partly stems from the fact that a lot of Elizabeth's favourites tend to share the same religion. So you could even argue the favouritism shown to someone like Sir John Forster does tie in with religion also. This is a crucial one that often gets overlooked, number 4. And I see, Gray, you've nailed it here. Northumberland loses rights to a particular copper mine, which is on his lands, but the Crown essentially seized the rights to this copper mine. Obviously, it's a precious metal at that point. And this makes him particularly angry and resentful. You've got the fact that obviously Elizabeth has no heir, which is, number 2, another political reason. It creates that power vacuum. There's questions over who will replace her. And then this ties in with number 3. We know now that Mary, Queen of Scots, is in England. She's fled since from 1568. And the Duke of Norfolk is planning, or he eventually bottles out, for want of a better phrase, but he's considering marrying the Queen of Mary, Queen of Scots, which will cement again her sort of power, if you like, or her claim to the throne, because not only is she a legitimate heir, marrying a senior, noble within England will strengthen her claim. And also strengthen the support of English Catholics. Next, religious reasons. James Pilkington, appointed Archbishop of Durham. He's a Protestant, so this angers, the Catholic heartlands of the North. This then ties in with number 5 about the Catholic majority in the North rejecting the religious settlement. So James Pilkington being appointed Archbishop had salt into the wounds. And then the fact that Mary is in England is a rallying point for Catholics. And this also makes the potential issue of a marriage of Duke of Norfolk, particularly appealing to them. So a lot of issues there. The key for if it's a potential 12 mark or 16 marker is obviously explaining them. But excellent work, Gray. You nailed it. Superb.
I think you're going to take us through this timeline as well, aren't you, Rocky? Is that right?
Yeah, I am. Apologies. Yeah, sorry. I was just checking. I don't know if there's a delay on my sound. But right, so we've got a timeline. So we've looked at the causes, we've looked at the key characters, which Duncan went through. Now we're going to look at the events of the Northern Rebellion. So a lot happens in a short space of time. Now you can see on the left, the chronology is in the correct order, but all you have to do is marry the events to the letter. So in the comments, as you go through this, you might want to, for instance, say A1, B2, I don't know, C6, in order to make sure you're marrying those letters and those key dates with the key events. Okay. Some of these as well, if you read them carefully, some of the events, will precede others, and you can start to put pieces of the jigsaw together. So there's no clock on this, no time
we don't,
limit.
No. I mean, if you want to get your ukulele out and bongos, we can have a, we could do so. A minute's music, couldn't we?
Maybe I could sing a cappella. I mean, everyone would disappear then.
I'll have to try and rediscover the mute button at that point.
So there's something that happens actually, without giving too much away. There's something that happens like prior to the actual revolt, which helps show that Elizabeth is able to react quickly to certain aspects of this, plan or sense of subterfuge against her.
Just while we're looking at these, did the rebels mean to capture Barnard Castle in Durham, or were they just getting their eyes tested because they'd got COVID?
I was waiting for the Dominic Cummings reference. I knew you wouldn't disappoint. But yeah, who knows? Maybe Dominic was a fan of Elizabeth.
Could have been.
Maybe that's why he went up there as well.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe he was doing his GCSE history.
Right.
Okay.
Well,
should we have a little look?
Yeah.
Okay, brilliant. So the news of Norfolk potentially marrying Mary, Queen of Scots is dealt with very quickly. That's dealt with very swiftly, and he's placed in the Tower. Westmoreland and Northumberland, though, partly egged on by their wives, they decide to proceed with the rebellion. You then see, within a few weeks, November the 14th, Durham Cathedral is seized, Catholic Mass is heard. That gives you an idea of the religious aspect of this rebellion. The Earl of Sussex is trying to deal with the situation at hand and trying to rally troops in that region to try and put down the rebellion and the revolt quickly. Doesn't find much joy. And this ties in then with him writing to the Privy Council to try and raise forces in the north. Meanwhile, the rebels are hoping for Spanish troops to arrive. There's a belief that Spain, because obviously this is mainly led by Catholics in the north, well, wholly led by Catholics in the north, Spain will try and support the rebel claim, because one of the key things they want to do is place Mary Queen of Scots on the throne. However, they do not arrive. The rebels then capture Barnard Castle, as Duncan has rightly pointed out. And then finally, you'll see the delay here between November the 16th and December the 16th. It takes a month ultimately from Sussex's letter to the Privy Council to then create a situation whereby troops from the south are rallied. They then march north, and then within a few days, you see the rebels that are, nearly a third or just over a third of the size of Sussex, easy for me to say, Sussex's men, to then flee to Scotland, which basically shows that the revolt dissipates relatively quickly once the troops are assembled. But as I say, there's a lot going on with the revolt, but you'll see there's obviously political causes. There's also religious causes, but that issue about Catholic Mass being heard in Durham Cathedral is a really noteworthy point.
Okay, thanks very much for that, Rocky. We've got some true and false questions now. I think for some of these we might get Rocky to add a little extra detail as to why they're true or false as well when we go through these. But if we start with the first one, following the rebellion, Mary Queen of Scots and the Duke of Norfolk were executed. Is this true or false? Any ideas? Do feel free to type into the chat window if you want to. Gray's come in with false. Let's have a look. Very good. Well done. They weren't. It's quite a while before Mary's executed, isn't it? That's sometime later.
Yeah. No, it ties in next week. We're going to look at some of the key plots, the Babington plot of 86, the Throckmorton plot of 83, and then the Rodolphi plot of 71. Norfolk is executed after the Rodolphi plot of 71, and then Mary Queen of Scots is executed after the Babington plot of 86. Good knowledge, Gray.
Yep, very good. Next one. This was and I think we may have just got an answer to this one. This was the only serious threat or rebellion to Elizabeth's reign. What do we reckon? If you didn't already, I was going to say, if you didn't already know it, you probably do now. That one is false, and we're going to hear about some more of those next time. Yeah, well done, Gray. You got it as well. Approximately 450 rebels were executed on the orders of Elizabeth to make the people question rebelling again. What do we reckon? Sort of thing she might do, isn't it? Gray's gone for true for that one. It is true, yeah. Suppose it's a significant portion of the rebel force, but not, it's interesting. It certainly would put people off, I suppose, although it didn't succeed in putting people off, as we've heard already, that there were further plots and revolts. But it's interesting. Next one. Westmoreland escaped, but Northumberland was captured and executed in 1572. And this is a gruesome detail. His head was put on a spike outside York City Gate. Quite a lot of heads got stuck on spikes around York at various points in history. It seems to be a place that attracts heads on spikes. But was this one of them? Yeah, Gray's gone for true again, and I think Gray is correct. Very good, well done. And I think the last of these true or false questions is: Elizabeth established the Council of the North, which ensured the region was under greater centralised control, and as a result it became easier to suppress rebellious Catholics in the North. Is this true or false? What do we think? Gray's gone for true again. You're going on a roll here, Gray. Very good. Well done. Absolutely, it was true. Okay,
Yeah.
I'm going to hand back to Rocky now. Take us to an exam question.
Yeah, so we're going to go through a 16 marker. Now, obviously, you can download these resources afterwards. So this, will be good for planning. And I tried to come up with a 16 marker that I actually think is quite tricky in order to emphasize the importance of criteria for judgment. So this is the statement you have. The biggest reason for the failure of the revolt was Elizabeth's swift response. How far do you agree? Now, one stimulus point looks about Elizabeth raising an army of 14,000 men, which we know once the Duke of Sussex writes to the Privy Council, the Privy Council help, get those men from the south of England to march north. And then the second is the failure of the Spanish to arrive at Hartlepool. So we can have a paragraph basically that forms around each stimulus point, and then we need to go beyond the stimulus points as a third paragraph, and then link back to the question with our criteria. So for an introduction, you want to outline your judgment, state your opinion and why, but then establish criteria. Okay, so how do you measure the biggest problem? That's the key issue, or rather sort of the biggest reason for failure. How would you quantify or qualify that? Now, by doing that, it then allows you license to link back to the question at the end of each paragraph and make sure that your analysis is consistent, which is what the examiner is looking for. Obviously, I've already said one stimulus point per paragraph. I always believe the stimulus points are there to help you. They're not there to trip you up. Providing you've revised, those stimulus points are great. And then the third paragraph will take you beyond the stimulus points to access those higher levels. And then in your conclusion, obviously, you revisit the criteria, and I'll explain how that works next. So with our criteria here, I've outlined, and again, this is not the only type of criteria, but you keep it simple. The biggest reason for failure would be the one which meant the rebellion had no chance of success. So at what points was the rebellion successful? At what points was the rebellion prolonged? And what were the key reasons, therefore, that led to it having no chance of success, or basically dissipating and fizzling out? Okay, so then I've written, regarding the question, this would imply that if Elizabeth had not been swift, then the revolt would have been successful. Because again, this issue about swiftness, speed in which Elizabeth reacts, is what the examiner is testing. So to what extent is she being swift, and to what extent is that swift response critical in ensuring that the rebels have no chance of success? So that's what I will be measuring throughout my 16 marker. So now I'm using the stimulus point. So I'm embracing the fact that she raises an army of 14,000 men. I talk about the need for Sussex writing to the Privy Council, and the fact that this 14,000 men, they heavily outnumber the 5,500 rebel forces. And you see these forces eventually flee to Scotland. And I've mentioned here Westmoreland eventually then flees to Flanders, but then Northumberland is captured. And so I've said here, linking back to the question, obviously the army is critical in defeating the rebel forces, but her response was not swift. It was unable to be so. Therefore, her swift response was not critical to the rebellion ending, because, as I say, the rebellion in itself, or the dealing with that, was not swift. It couldn't be, because Sussex couldn't rally support in the north to defeat the rebels. He had to rely on troops from the south. And this is why the timeline is very important. He writes that letter to the Privy Council November the 16th. Troops don't hit the River Tees until December the 16th. And again, when we're looking at key details and key substantiation, that's a really easy, set of dates to remember, because there's directly, exactly a month between them. Okay. So second paragraph then, I'm now embracing the idea of the Spanish yet to arrive at Hartlepool, and I've talked about why that was important. I've said again, rebels only have a force of 5,500 men. Sussex troops are yet to reach the north, but the rebels are still progressing, as indicated by their capturing of Barnard Castle. Now, I've then mentioned as well about how critical it was for Spain or rather for Spanish troops to arrive at Hartlepool, because if they have arrived, it obviously would have bolstered the numbers of the rebels. It maybe would have encouraged other rebels or potential rebels, or Catholic Catholic supporters rather, to be emboldened to further get involved in the rebellion. And so therefore I've said the biggest reason for failure is not Elizabeth's swift response, but perhaps more a lack of support from abroad that would have allowed the rebellion to grow. So instantly, again, at the end of this paragraph, I'm linking back to the question. I'm using the wording of the question about swift response, and then I'm tying it to, success and failure of the rebellion. And then to go beyond the stimulus point, last of all, with the third paragraph, this is where you show the examiner just how much you know. You can then go on to talk about the importance of the fact that, the rebels failed to generate more support amongst other key nobility. So Lord Dacre, he was actually a Catholic. He was supportive of the rebellion and revolt, believe it or not. But he starts to get cold feet and starts to think, well, if I don't get involved and show some loyalty, perhaps that might give me more power in the long run. I've said as well about the importance of the Pope yet to excommunicate Elizabeth. This comes after the revolt of the Northern Earls. Now, this is important because if the Pope excommunicates English subjects from the church, or the chance of getting to heaven, this might rally and motivate English Catholics to get involved. But the fact that the Pope has yet to excommunicate Elizabeth at that point means that the Catholics have an excuse not to involve themselves. Their souls are intact, their souls are preserved, they're going to go to heaven regardless. So that's an interesting point to remember. And then lastly, I've sort of turned the question on its head and then looked at, there is swift action in September. September, Elizabeth finds out about the plot. But if we go back to our timeline, at the beginning of November, she eventually intervenes. And so there's relatively swift action there. She imprisons the Duke of Norfolk in the Tower, which then motivates Westmoreland and Northumberland to proceed anyway. But so we could then say that swift response in imprisoning the Duke of Norfolk puts off other Catholics from getting involved. Okay. So here we've embraced stimulus points. Now we've gone beyond them. And then in my conclusion, I'm reinforcing my judgment and then going back to the criteria. And without just reading this, verbatim, ultimately, I'm saying that Elizabeth's swift response wasn't the most critical factor. Indeed, like, the rebellion lasts as long as there is no army from Elizabeth to put it down. But ultimately, perhaps the rebellion would have continued and would have become more successful if there was Spanish intervention, if there wasn't as much, apathy in the north, because Westmoreland and Northumberland are expecting more people to support them, people like Leonard Dacre or Lord Dacre, for example. So then, last sentence, the swiftness with which the force was organised and the revolt in turn dealt with was not ultimately the key factor. Okay, so there's a lot of information there, but my advice to you would be to print this out, go through again, think about how the stimulus points are used, how we've gone beyond them, how we've used our criteria and linked back throughout. And doing that consistently and approaching other 16 markers in this way will allow you to hit those top levels. And in terms of the top level, you're looking at the band of 13 to 16 marks. This will allow you to have a good chance of entering that.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
I'm thinking there just might have been some more moments of silence of me there, were there? If so, I'm hoping you're coming up with 5 causes for the revolt, 4 key characters from the revolt, 3 reasons why the revolt was a failure, 2 indications that the revolt was based around religion, and the Pope's response to the revolt in 1570. Okay. You don't have to do them all at once. So you could, if you want to talk about cause and result, you can put 5 and then one of them, if you like. Apologise for our technical mishaps. Hello, Otty. Yeah, apologise for those. The first one was a genuine technical with no idea what was going on. Something muted my microphone. This more recent one was me forgetting to unmute my microphone when I'd muted it during Rocky's Rocky's exam point. So I do apologise for that.
3, 2, 1.
Couple of ideas coming through. Okay, I might give you a moment more because of the random silence at the start. Some of you might not have totally got the hang of what the activity did involve. We got any of these before I start pressing them through? You'll have a little longer on the 4, 3, 2 and 1 because we'll see the 5s first and then go through them. So if if you're still typing answers to some of these, that's fine. I'll keep an eye on them as they potentially come through. Okay, so shall we have a look at 5 causes of the revolt first of all? So, quite detailed ones here, and I'm sure you'll have some others potentially. So Mary, Queen of Scots, was now in England, as we previously mentioned. So she was a rallying point for rebel English Catholics, and there's decided that she could replace Elizabeth on the throne. She had her own claim to the throne. Northumberland was angry about its copper mines, as we mentioned at the start, and then being seized by Elizabeth. Northumberland and Howard were angry at the influence of Protestants at court, such as William Cecil and Robert Dudley. Rejection of Elizabeth's religious settlement and a desire for return to Catholicism. Anger at the new Archbishop of Durham. So all these religious ideas that we'd mentioned before. And the issue about Elizabeth still not having named an heir. 4 key figures, and obviously there were more people you could have picked, but Thomas Percy, Earl of Northumberland, Charles Neville, Earl of Westmoreland, Thomas Howard, the Duke of Norfolk, Mary, Queen of Scots, key figures that we've mentioned during the session. 3 reasons why it was a failure. Elizabeth had reasonably quickly assembled an army of 14,000, led by Sussex following his letter in November. Spanish support that was meant to arrive at Hartlepool did not arrive, and the rebel force was 5,400 people, didn't get extra support or others joining it. I mentioned Lord Dacre there, and then we've got some indications the revolt was based around religion, rebel banners having religious symbols, Catholic mass being said at Durham Cathedral and in other northeastern churches. You're very welcome, Otty, by the way. We're very, very pleased to be giving you videos. We didn't even realise otters could watch our videos, but we're very pleased that you have done. And then finally, the Pope issued a papal bull excommunicating Elizabeth and calling on loyal Catholics to depose her.
That last point, quickly, Duncan, is really important, because obviously we said one of the reasons why Catholics seem to be a little bit apathetic to the Northern Rebellion is the fact that the Pope has yet to excommunicate Elizabeth. He does instruct Catholics to take part in recusancy from 1566, but he doesn't excommunicate England or Elizabeth. But following the success of the Northern Rebellion in terms of Elizabeth dealing with it and holding on to the throne, he then excommunicates her. And guess what happens in 1571? We have another plot, the Rodolphi plot, which we'll be looking at next week.
Great stuff. Okay, thanks for that, Rocky. And yeah, that's our session for today. I apologise for some technical mishaps during today's session. A normal service will be resumed next week. If you need to, if you've got a smart device of some sort, you can scan that QR code there, and there's lots of study notes and activities and quizzes and things on our website, the 222 website. We also have some great resources available that you can get from this website, including an excellent exam buster booklet written by Rocky on early Elizabethan England, as well as resources on other topics as well that you may be covering. Okay, I'm going to come back to the studio, and I did wonder whether that might happen. I'm going to get Rocky to reappear. Yeah, there you go. So that's been a good session, apart from our good session on your side. I do apologise for the technical mishaps at our side. Thanks for your contributions throughout the session, and next week we're looking at some more plots. Yeah, absolutely. So that'll be good. And we will see you then. So if you've found the session useful, even with the moments of silence, then please do click the like button, and do subscribe to and then you'll find out about future sessions. Doing them for lots of other subjects as well. So in terms of GCSEs, there's geography, there's business, there's sociology. I'm sure there's some others which I should have mentioned. So do join us for those, and let your friends who are doing A levels, etc., know that we've got many more for other subjects there. Okay, see you next week. Thanks again, Rocky, and
take care.
Cheerio, guys. Bye bye.